Hey, welcome back to another episode of CRM Radio. Today, one of the few shows, maybe the only show, that talks about the ever-changing CRM space with the man who's seen it all and continues to be amazed at the marvelous inventions coming our way, Stacy Gentile. Hey, Stacy.
Oh, yes, amazed indeed.
Do you ever get
bewildered at the same time?
I hear this from time to time, and I tell people about different shows we have, and they're like, CRM, that's like yesterday's conversation. Doesn't everybody have a CRM by now? No. And isn't CRM sort of been set in stone? We figured out everything to do, all the features of CRM, they've been established by you guys, the GoldMine and others here. Is something new in the space? Is it still as cutting edge as it seemed 10 years ago?
Well, I think anything that involves technology is always moving forward and propelling itself wherever the market's trying to take it and fill gaps. I think if you look at nature, the only thing that is consistent, if you stand still, you die.
Yeah, right, exactly. So give me some idea of new changes you've seen recently or things that might be ahead on the horizon. I know AI is a big part of that. Artificial intelligence and big data. We're going to have more data about our customers than we ever did. How do we sift through it? How do we store it? How do we use it?
Well, I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out. I think AI, it's really at the forefront. It's starting to come into its own. I think there's a lot that's unknown about it. And I think there's going to be a huge market in the future. And as you said, there's so much more data being created every minute of every day, and trying to make sense out of that data is quite frankly challenging. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to do it is with AI. A funny thing, I was just watching some Elon Musk stuff, and they're trying to do neuro implants now.
Oh my
where
goodness,
they're going to put a computer chip in your brain. And he goes, well, you've already got the access to your cell phone, and your cell phone is the connector to the entire data in the world. You want to know something, you can ask your phone and it feeds it back, but there's a bandwidth problem between the phone and your brain. So all he's trying to do is connect the phone directly into your brain.
Wow.
So that you can instantaneously transfer data back and forth.
But who's going to update the operating system within my brain? I've still got a caveman lizard operating system here, and I'm trying to process this data so quick. And we laugh at that, but I remember years ago I studied film, and the professor said, look at a silent movie. They were moving from watching people live on the stage to watching them filmed on the stage. And so they did it as a stage play. The actors walked into the frame, said their line, and walked out. The camera didn't move at all. It was too jarring to move the camera. And when they started moving the camera around, do a close-up, a reaction shot, pull back and see the master shot, just that simple little sequence threw people for a loop. It was too much data. Now cut ahead 100 years later, and I watch my 5-year-old grandson play some of these video games. I feel like I'm having an epileptic seizure going on, and my eyes start blinking. It's moving so quickly now, the pace of information coming at me. I don't know that my lizard brain can consume it all.
Yeah, and it's only going to excel. I think, you look at the invention of the phone, the radio, the airplane, the automobile, those all had major impacts on humanity. And I think the next big leap is definitely going to be like this thing that Elon Musk is trying to do with wiring the brain directly into technology and data. And I think the other thing as well is, there's probably two other major things on the forefront is I think there's going to be a lot done with genetics and stem cell kind of stuff.
Now you're scaring me here. Yeah, right.
And then I think the other big thing beyond all of that, and we're way off the subject of CRM here.
Yeah, but
the other thing is I think at a certain point in the near future, we'll be opting out of most of our human bodies. I mean, you look at prosthetic limbs and stuff now, and
huge here in Orange County. This whole biomedical,
the original manufactured parts.
Yeah,
don't need my heart, don't need my lungs, don't need my legs.
We're all going to be the $6 million man if you're old enough to remember that TV show.
And then plugged into our cell phones.
Yeah.
so
let's go back to CRM for a second here. Another thing I hear people talking about, we had somebody in here the other day, and they had glasses that had a little display. I couldn't see it, but inside they could, I think, or they could hear something. They could hear music and Bluetooth. And then people are talking about like fighter pilots where there's a augmented reality. There's something, you're looking at the real world, but there's some sort of display appearing over it, enemy coming at you or something. Could we have the same thing with data that's analyzing?
So much more so. I mean, a couple of years ago, Google came out with Google Glass. I thought that was going to change humanity.
Me too, yeah.
I think there was privacy things where, like, if you were just walking around and and I looked at you, Paul, through my Google glasses, and it would facially recognize you and pull up your LinkedIn, pull up your Facebook, your Twitter, everything that the internet knew about you. And then they had it all right there in my face while we're talking. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Google put the brakes on it, because of the privacy reasons. But I think there will shortly be another technology similar to that. Or if you say, look, I want to go to the closest Walmart, instead of pulling it up on your cell phone or in your car navigation, it'll pop up in your eye lens and it'll just show you where to go, and you won't have to have your hands interacting with it.
In the old days, I said, I'll give you another bizarre example. I did some political work for some politicians like Maureen Reagan, the late great Maureen Reagan, who was Ronald Reagan's oldest daughter. A very dynamic person, helped her run for Congress a couple times. Didn't win, but I learned a lot. And what I learned is what politicians have to remember a lot of names. They got to shake a lot of hands, and not everybody
has.
So
much easier if Google Glass would just look at somebody and tell you.
So they literally have handlers, people like me behind them. They literally call them handlers, and they handle these situations, and they whisper in their ear, "That's Stacy from GoldMine." And they go, "Oh, okay. Hey, Stacy, how are you?" And you think, wow, boy, she's got a great memory. So that's a rough version of a Caveman CRM system. You've got Paul standing behind you, flipping through the Rolodex, trying to figure out who this is you're talking to. Well, imagine if they could also say, and he just closed a $10 million deal, or they just did this, or he's really into archery or something. I don't know, whatever. I'm trying to come up with crazy examples. Yeah.
So bringing things back to CRM, somehow you and I turned this into a TED Talk.
Well,
TED
because
Talk on technology.
I think that's the whole point. CRM is not something that's been figured out. CRM is entering a whole new phase where it's going to have to manage more data than you can imagine and give it to you in a meaningful way that you'll interact with. Because one of the problems I have with CRM systems, and I know today you want to talk about why switch. I'll tell you one of the reasons I want to switch half the time is because they're too complex. They want me to fill 1 million fields. I spend my whole day filling in data. I don't really want to use the data or know how to use the data, but I'm doing it because either the software is making me do it, or worse, whoever assigned me the software, that idiot at the company that bought this stupid CRM system, is making us do this, and what a waste of time.
The main thing I kind of had on the slate to talk about today was how to switch your CRM system, or even if you should.
Well, yeah, let's start with why. Why would you switch the CRM system? Everybody likes it, it's used, and then somebody comes in with a bright shiny object and sells it to the marketing manager here.
Well, I think when you look at the data, why people want to switch their CRM systems, the number one reason time and time again is that it's too expensive. And I think with a lot of the complexities now where you're seeing CRM systems merge into marketing automation systems, and they're getting integrated into the back end ERP and financial stuff, the dollars just start getting sprayed out at the end of a fire hose.
All right. And with that, am I the only one that feels that way, or are there more of us that feel that in an urge to differentiate yourself, all the CRM companies start saying, well, I'm going to throw this in and this in and this in and this in and this in. Well, most of us don't need all that thing or want all those things.
And at the end of the day, all of those features, they increase the price and they increase the complexity. And to your point, you buy stuff that you don't use. I just saw a recent stat that said 43% of CRM customers are using less than half of the features they paid for.
I believe it. I'm always looking for simpler. I'm always looking for cheaper. And yet I have to recognize that there is use for many of these fields and ideas they're creating. Maybe it's just I don't know how to use them, so I don't see the value in them.
And I think there's this, in about 2008, there was a big shift. There was basically two types of CRM. There was on-premise, where you owned your server, it would sit in your IT room. And then right around 2008, a lot of these SaaS-based, cloud-based things started coming out. I think, and the 2008 recession played a role in it too, where companies and IT managers didn't want to fork out big dollars for infrastructure. So they said, well, we'll just lease it, and then we'll just pay per user per month.
Right.
And I think there's been a little bit of industry trickery that's kind of gone on with that in our industry in particular. Is you look at a lot of these features and they say, well, you can get these 5,000 features and only pay $100 a month per user. And I think on the surface, that sounds enticing. Well, $100 a user a month, and I get 5,000 features. But when you consider that you're not going to use 5,000 features in your CRM system. And then, oh, by the way, you come to find out that it's not actually billed per month. It's billed annually. They just put they trick you and they put the pricing out there per month. Now, if you've got a 200 person company and you're paying $100 a month for them, and then you've got to pay that up front.
Yeah. That's a big bill.
Thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
That's a huge bill. And that's not only just the CRM stuff. Now, remember, you might have to integrate with other things because maybe you need a marketing automation platform. Maybe you need a financial system. I mean, all of it has to talk and work together. So the expense for this stuff is going up and up and up.
So let me compare it to another. Maybe this is just me here, but look at what's happening in the cable industry. For years, the idea was you don't have 3 TV channels anymore coming through the air. You got 300. And isn't that worth paying for it now instead of getting it for free? Oh, sure. And now I've literally got, 600 channels on DirecTV or whatever I've got. And yet, I find myself watching 6 of them again. I'm still watching 3 or 4 of them just like I did in the old days. But, oh, boy, I got 600 of them, 599 of them, which I don't use.
Well, everybody's unbundling that stuff too.
Exactly.
I mean, I haven't had cable for years, and I don't think any of my friends have. I mean, I'm in my late 40s.
Oh, you young whippersnapper, you!
But I mean, we've
cut the cord.
I use Amazon, I use Sling TV, and I use the internet to watch my stuff. I'm not paying DirecTV, aka Satan TV, $300 a month for 600 channels. I'm not.
So we went through that phase where more was exciting, like CRM, I think, has gone through, where we've got 5,000 features, and that's why it's now $200 a seat to sit in there. And yet, there are more and more people that's saying, wait a minute, I want to just go back to something simple and basic here. And that's why I think there is. What amazes me about your industry is the sheer number of players entering it all the time. I would think this would be an industry that had already matured, and there would be, like GoldMine, a handful of leaders out there. And yet I'm constantly amazed by the number of startups entering this field. Why is that?
I honestly don't know, because the market is saturated, and there are a number of us big players out there that have most of the market. And when I look at a lot of the startup companies that are coming into it, I mean, they're really not offering anything.
Yeah. Well, they come through here all the time, and they're always pitching stuff. Yeah.
They're trying to recreate the wheel and just create another, Me Too product.
Yeah.
I think the future of CRM is definitely going to be in productivity. And to your point, I think the future of CRM is definitely going to be in usability, because that's the biggest, one of the other biggest reasons, other than cost, that people are trying to switch their CRMs is people aren't using it.
Yeah.
And
we put this thing in place. We paid a bunch of bucks for it. We rolled it out and paid a consultant to come in and set it up for us, and nobody uses it.
Yeah, I mean, 83% of senior executives complain that people aren't properly using the CRM system. Almost 40% of salespeople don't comply with their company standards.
Wow.
And they're the frontline data entry people.
and I'll give you another shocking one that I'll bet they haven't studied. As much as the managers and the top-level management complain about this, we bought it, we implemented it, nobody uses it, I'll bet they don't use it.
Probably not. And I used to have this when I was back in my consulting days, I had this famous phrase. I don't know if I invented it or if I copyright stole it
we'll
from
credit
somebody.
You. We'll say you. This is a Stacyism, right? Yeah.
If your business process is a mess and you add technology to it, the only thing you're going to have is a mess at light speed.
Faster mess, right? Bigger mess.
And I think when you look at a lot of people's CRM systems, they just exponentially get messier with every minute of every day because people don't follow the processes and procedures. They weren't trained right. No. And then the executives are mad because people aren't following the rules, and then people are mad because they can't find what they're looking for. The data coming out, garbage in, garbage out. The data's coming out wrong. And the reports in the system, that the managers rely on are maybe inaccurate because of inaccurate data. And I think that's why a lot of people go, well, let's just scrap the system and go with something new. Now, there's some pros and cons to doing that. And obviously, it's a lot easier to switch the smaller that you are versus bigger companies because they face two different types of problems. And I think we're coming up on our commercial break, aren't we?
Let's do that and then come back and you can talk about this art of switching, when and how and why and how it happens here, because that is a concern for many of us who are frustrated with what we got. So we'll come back and talk about all that right after we do this. We know you rely on your CRM system, and it's usually a love-hate relationship. Most CRM systems, well, let's face it, they're expensive. They're hard to understand. People don't use them properly. And you're probably paying for features that you don't even want. If that's your case, then maybe it's time to simplify. It's time to get more from your CRM. Why don't you go back to the original? Trust GoldMine. We helped pioneer the industry, after all. GoldMine CRM is, well, it's simple, it's affordable, and it's proven. If all those sound appealing to you, if you're just tired of the CRM headaches that you're getting from trying to implement something that's just too complicated, too expensive, and too much for you to figure out, then why not go back to the original? Visit GoldMine today, goldmine.com. Okay, boy, that commercial said it all. Too tired, too frustrated, time to do something different. How do we do that? When do we throw in the towel, and how do we do it?
Well, I think, there's got to be something that's happening within the organization that's going to make them decide that they've got to switch. I think one of the biggest reasons. You mean
more than just switching the CMO?
Yeah.
Who brings in his new great idea?
Yeah. It's not just something you're going to do on a whim, right? So usually you outgrew the system. It's not integrating into something. You're getting tired of the cost. Or here's a big one is that, did you know this, Paul? 50% of CRM projects fail when they try to switch.
What? No, I would never guess that. No, you got to explain that one to me. You mean they decide to move, they go out and get some requests for proposals from big companies and little companies alike, companies like yours and others, and you all come in there and somebody wins the bid and it fails?
Yeah, 50% of the time. And there's a lot at stake. I mean, that's all data.
What do you do? Do you try and roll it back and go back to the legacy system, or do you just go pick another one?
Yeah, I think a lot of confusion ensues.
Yeah.
So I think what that really says to me is a lot of people tend to repeat the same mistakes, right? So they start with their CRM system and they don't plan it for the growth, or they don't get the stakeholder buy-in, or the manager's buy-in, or the salespeople's buy-in, or understand maybe what they're going to need in the future. So at some point the system ends up wrong, right? And then they say, okay, well, let's change the system.
Right.
And then they repeat that poor planning. And they go and they buy something different, and then they just redo what they did the first time.
Mess up, eat, throw up, repeat. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All right. So how do you get buy-in? Because that's a big one. It's always a top-down decision. The company has announced we have a new CR system, and I've been in those companies, and everybody groans. Oh, my God. They don't say, oh, whoopee, yay, I can't wait for the new system and to spend time learning it and the exciting things I can do with it. No,
We're habitual, right? We don't like change, and we like to repeat our past behaviors,
even if it's failing. I know we need something better, but oh, great. They didn't ask me. Now they're going to make me do it, and I'm going to prove this thing is wrong.
Well, getting buy-in on these types of things, it's on one hand easy, and on the other hand it's difficult. I think if you've got a good selling point for why you're switching, like it's going to help us manage our leads better, it's going to help us market better, it's going to help us get better reports.
It's going to take less time to do, maybe, and we'll get
less time. It's an easier interface to use. It's more familiar. So I think you got to sell the end goal, and I think also you should try to simplify, because I think what's happening right now in our market is they're trying to chase the new shiny object, and that's more complex.
Right.
That's
what we talked the whole first part. We're talking about complexity is not necessarily your friend here.
Right. And that's a quick way to lose the buy-in, right? So you come in and you sell the idea that it's going to be simple, better, faster. And then you put it in place, and that's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And now
nightmare.
you've really got a problem on your hands, because nobody's using the system, and they're all mad.
So do you guys go out? All right. So I'm the big, and quite often it seems like there is some change at the top, and the change at the top immediately is going to come in and bring a new system in place. That's first thing I can do as a new chief marketing officer or sales manager, I'm going to change the systems in place here. I see that all the time. And then they bring in their system that they're familiar with, and this is going to improve our productivity by X percent. And so the senior management gives them a shot at it and says, go for it. Immediately, there's pushback, resistance, because I don't understand it. I don't like it. Bring back the old. Do you guys, as vendors, ever go out and help not just train them, but sell them on this? Are you part of the sales process, or do you just show up as the evil guys with the new system that I didn't ask for and I don't like?
Well, that's one of the beauties of GoldMine is that we do this through partners, right? So we have partners that do the consulting and do the installs and do the integrations, and they go out and they work with our clients to end up achieving that. And of course, that has a lot to do with planning and strategizing and figuring out tab A goes into slot B stuff as well.
So what's a normal rollout? What should I expect? Am I going to do this in 30 days, 30 minutes, 3 years?
Well, I think it depends upon the size of the company. I think the smaller the company and the less complexity you have in the business, the easier it is to do. I know when I used to be personally involved in it, going into smaller companies and just kind of bulldozing and starting from scratch wasn't so painful.
Yeah.
But when you get into, mid-sized businesses or enterprise businesses, it gets massively complex, and that's when you really got to dig in and plot things out. Now I think there's a lot of risk and a lot of fear in switching CRM systems, especially, when you're, got a 250 plus person.
It's the
company.
core of your whole sales business here. It's if we mess this up, if 50% of it fails, that's a pretty frightening statistic. You just made me not want to change ever here.
It is, but there's also, there's a little opportunity in there too, where you can simplify and cut things down and make sure that everything's going into the database in a clean, organized way. Because like I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of CRM systems are just so cluttered with junk. I think even for big companies, sometimes you might want to just cut it down and kind of clean it out and start it over in an organized fashion. You don't obviously want to lose data like your sales pipeline or contacts or that kind of stuff. A lot of the stuff you can lose and replace. Or you could run, I know what we used to do sometimes with bigger companies is we'd run two parallel systems. We'd set them up on a new system that's much more trimmed down and lightweight and, 100% accurate data. And then as we need, if there's something that's not in there, we can go back to the old system, grab it, bring it over manually, pretty much on a one-to-one basis and put it in over the course of 6 months.
I like that. You just made me feel more comfortable here. Yeah. If I can keep the old while I'm setting up the new, that makes the whole process seem easier.
Right. But I don't want to take away anything from the complexity with large companies trying to do this stuff. I mean, oftentimes, you're talking $1 million integrations.
Well, what I'd love to hear on a future show is how do they take the capabilities that you guys present and design a system that works for them? Is that something that the outside vendors do and their implementers, whoever they use to help set these up? Or is it within the organization? Do they have to have a real, I'll say, come to Jesus meeting? Maybe that's not an appropriate term anymore, but where you really get down to the facts here. What do we need? What is it that we're missing? Why did the old one fail? What can we do with the new one, and how should we implement it? Somebody's got to really design a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, there's always vendors and consultants out there that can sit down with companies and do that. But I think to your point, the company's probably better off if they do it internally because they know
start by having a dialogue and get everybody in the room and have a discussion with the people in the front line. Here's why we're unsatisfied with it at the top. What do you guys like it? And why aren't you using these other features? And why can't we get more data from you? Why can't we get better data from you?
And always, especially a new CRM system or one that you're switching away from something old to something new, is begin with the end in mind, right?
Yeah, right.
What data do we need to get out of the system, and how do we get the data in there? What data is in our old system that we completely don't need? Can we cut it out? Can we streamline?
And to decide what a good CRM system looks like for you. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to see?
Right. And don't forget the people side of the equation and the process side, because the way that the people interact with it and whether or not they like it is often more important than whatever features or bells and whistles that you're putting in.
I'll give you another future show, another future topic you could do, not only about how do we set up a strategy, how to use it, what do we want out of it, why did the old one fail, and what do we want out of the new one. Here's one that you could do. it seems like there's an inherent conflict between what management wants and what the frontline sales force wants. Frontline sales force views too often these things as a burden and a time waster, whereas the upper management views them as critical. I want to know what you're doing out there. I want to be able to predict. I want to be able to monitor. I want to be able to nimbly move. And I don't know that salespeople embrace it as a tool to help them. Too often they see it as a tool to help somebody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of salespeople, especially when you put that accountability into things, they look at the CRM system as the enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're like, the managers are improperly managing and using the CRM system as a billy club to beat up the salespeople.
Right.
How many calls have you made? How many emails have you made? You know, rather than using the technology in a symbiotic fashion between frontline sales and management to achieve a desired end goal, they end up weaponizing the CRM system against the salespeople. And
you hit it. Absolutely. That's the show I want to hear in the future. Yeah. Stop turning your CRM into a weapon and turn it into a tool.
Your CRM.
Yeah, really. Yeah. You hit it right there. That's why salespeople resist it. It's something to get beat up with.
Yeah, every Monday morning you come to the office and they hold this CRM gun to your head.
I got this report. You didn't fill it out right, or the report says you're failing. And it's like, you don't even know what that report says. I just filled it out to send you something. Here's the real truth. You can't handle the truth.
In closing, Paul, GoldMine, we've been around a long time. We've got a lot of options available. If you're thinking about switching your CRM system, we've got internal people and vendors that can help you navigate that course.
You can make it work. You can be part of the winning 50%, not the losing 50%.
You know, some of the advantages of being around more than 25 years. You know, a lot of these companies popped up in 2008, and we've been around since, I don't know, whenever Moses was around.
I think the tablets were written in a CRM system. I didn't know. Right. I didn't know people knew that, but yeah,
the Ten Commandments was the first CRM system.
That's right, exactly. And it was gold. It was GoldMine at that time. All right. Well, I appreciate it. How do they reach you?
They can reach us at goldmine.com. Or if you're looking for specials and promotions and ways that we can help, I'd suggest emailing Paul Peterson. That's Paul.Peterson, Petersen at GoldMine, and ask him what kind of promos and offers
what do you got going.
Sure he's got some.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing it with us. I want to hear that weaponized story here. That's the episode I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I've been on the unfortunate end of that sometimes.
Yeah, we all have. All right. Yeah. It's a tool. It's not a weapon to be held over people's head. It's a tool for them to use.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
You've been listening to another episode of CRM Radio Today, where we tell you the truth about what's happening in the CRM space today and tomorrow.